Okay, we're picking up where we left off. We have taken these three original frames, you convert them to 32-bit images. In this case, they were already 32-bit. We do a logarithmic stretch by going to Process, Math, Log. We don't want to do that right now because it will do it. And then adjust them separately. I separated my stack so that I could adjust each image individually. And then I converted them back to 16-bit. And the idea is when you go from 32-bit back down to a 16-bit image, let's now look at our process, our histogram. I'm going to take this red image, and in this case I'm going to try to look at the bigger histogram. So I'm going to go to Analyze menu and drop down to Histogram so that we can get a little larger version and see a little bit better detail. So we started off with a teensy-weensy spike way over against the left wall. We've now at least moved that over into the dark grays, and it's significantly wider. And what that means is that we actually have some latitude for adjustment. So we've made an improvement to our histogram. And now let's work on making an improvement to our image. So now we can take each one of these, and I'm going to click on the center of my image, click on the object or an area of interest, and then use the plus button to zoom in a little bit. Notice over here it's showing you, where you are in your image. And then I can take this this channel, and I'm going to go to Image, Adjust my brightness and contrast. And at this point, because I've already done my logarithmic stretch, now I can try brightening this up to create a, some kind of a beautiful image. And how bright do I want to go? Well, I don't want it to be crazy, where I start losing information and wiping things out and they become white. So I want to go, back it off to something that looks really nice. And then I like to make sure that with this upper slider, I back it off just so that the background, these areas up in here, should look dark. I don't want them to be kind of milky gray. So we're going to back off, click, 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 until that starts to look nice and dark. And then I can set this one aside, and then I'll click on this green one. And again, there's my little puff. So I'm going to plus, 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 go in there so I can see what I'm doing. Now I can click on the brightness and contrast. Its histogram will be slightly different. And you notice that there's different features that show up. This object looks different when you look at it through different filters because you're selecting different parts of its structure. And how bright do I want to go? Well, here's an interesting point. Let me go back over to this one. I'm going to highlight this one, click on that header, and then go click on this one. And notice that what I want to make note of is what number is this? What position did I put that in? In this case, it's 30,941. Now, why might I want to know that? Now, if I click on this one and look at its graph by clicking on the brightness and contrast, I'm at 33,824. So let's try to make this one the same as the other one, 30,941. And the reason that I might want to do that, and then let's back off on the top to make sure, if we need to, make sure the background looks, good and dark. Okay, great. Take this one, put it over there, and we go to the blue one. And we'll click on this little puff in the center, zoom in a bit so we can see what we're doing, go to the brightness and contrast, and then we can brighten this one up. And if we brighten them all to the same number, that 30,000, the great advantage of that is that you're then likely to have realistic looking star colors so that that star isn't going to look ridiculously hot pink or crazy green or whatever. So I've adjusted the three of them, at least for now, and I've got three separate frames that are, pretty decent. So now what I can do is say Image, Color, Merge Channels. Okay, so Image, Color, Merge Channels. And it asks me, well, which one am I going to call red? Now, I might have hydrogen alpha, sulfur 2, oxygen 3. In this case, I have broadband red, green, and blue, but sometimes we have narrowband images. So I got to tell it which one is red. And I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to pick the red one. And then it goes over here, and it says, well, which one is green? Well, it's going to be the green one. And then which one do you want the computer to color blue? Well, how about the blue one? So this is red, green, blue. And then you say, OK. And boom, it pops them together. And wow, just like magic, we now have a pretty reasonable looking image. That's pretty cool. Let's zoom in a little bit with the plus sign. I click where I want to zoom, and I zoom in so I can see, what's going on there. These stars don't look ridiculous, but they look a little bit out of round. Let's investigate that. Now, I've already selected the little hand up here, so I can move around my image. And let's pick a small but distinct star, ideally not in the center of your image. Let's take this one. I'm going to click on it, and then let's go plus, plus, plus. We want to get up to about 600 or 800%. And so up here it's giving you 800%. You can see we're way up here in the corner of our image. And what you can notice is the reason that those stars don't look perfectly round is that the red, the green, and the blue haven't completely lined up. They're really close. And so right now I'm at the red layer. Here's red, this one's the green, this one's the blue. And one of the ways that you can tell is if you look at the text way up here. If you're colorblind, this is going to be tough, but this text is red, and this text is green, and this text is blue. So I'm going to, what looks like I have to do is make the green go up and make the red go down and meet in the middle. Okay, so let's go to the red layer first. So I highlight the red layer, so the text up here is now red, and then I use Control A, Command A if you're on a Macintosh, and then Control X. We're going to cut that layer off of our stack, and then Control V, we're going to paste it back on the stack, but now it's an active layer, and we can move it. With the arrows on my keyboard, I can move that layer all by itself. This is kind of cool. And you can make really nifty kind of weird 3D effects if you want to, or you want to mess around with that. Yeah, you might not be able to get it perfect. And so where is the best place? I don't know. Let's say the best place is, hard to say. How about there? Okay, great. Now let's see, can we improve that at all? If we go to the green layer, the green was a little low. Let's do again Control A, Control X, Control V. And now does it help at all if I move the green layer, or does it just make it worse? It looks like it doesn't really help. Okay, so let's leave it there. And then let's try, if I click on that and then zoom back out again with the minus key. Okay, my stars look pretty round, and that's pretty reasonable. And so now let's zoom in on my nebula. In this case, it's fairly small compared to the full field of view. And do I want to brighten it up or anything else from here? So I can do that. I still have my 3 individual layers. So I can highlight a layer, in this case the red layer, and I can go to Image, Adjust, Brightness and Contrast, and I can still adjust individual layers. And in this case, you can tell I'm working on the red layer because my histogram here is shown in red. Do I want to make it any brighter? Do I want to get it up to, I don't know, maybe I want to get up to 20, maybe 24,000. The numbers are just, they're not significant, but they're kind of handy as benchmarks for what we're doing. 23,000. I don't want this to turn white. So I want to go as bright as I can go before that gets to be a mess. That may be it. So how about we go to 22,000. There we go. 22,037. Yeah, it's not quite blown out yet. And now we'll go to the next channel. And now we go back to brightness and contrast. All I can do is click on it. It's still there. And now let's bring this one up to the same amount. Now, what was that amount? 22,037. So we'll go here. We'll write down. We'll bring this one up to 22,037. And we may not want it that bright in that particular channel, but what this will do is also help make sure that our star colors look pretty good. And then anytime that the background has kind of a haze that is the color of the filter you're working on, then back off the upper slider a wee bit to get rid of that. Sort of pulls the haze back down into reality. Now we'll go to the blue layer, which we haven't pumped up yet, and we'll pump it up to 22,037. Oop, went too far. Oh, well, that's pretty cool. Now it turns out you could really crank the blue. What we really need is longer exposures than this, because you can see there's this blue haze, and I know because I've taken longer exposures of this image that there's some extended blue areas that actually stick way out here. We're not going to get them from this image because this isn't a long enough exposure, but we might. It's a good lesson to say, let's go back to this object sometime, and don't get a 5-minute exposure, but let's get 2 hours of exposure and see what we can get on that. And we can look at that and we can say, okay, well that's pretty good, and maybe we can go a little brighter. Maybe we can go to 21,000 a little bit, because this isn't quite blown out yet. So you want to make sure the brightest part of your image hasn't been destroyed. And then go through and adjust